Well, you have come to the right spot. Here at the Weather Network, we are bringing you everything you need for the Thanksgiving long weekend. We can't promise you better weather, but we'll promise you a good forecast, that's for sure. Now, let's do a little recap. National hotspot, BC takes it again, 22.4. That was pretty hot yesterday. Cool, well, we're talking about Winnipeg, 8 degrees. Today, though, a little bit of a warm-up, getting up to 10, and quite a nice warm-up throughout the prairies as well. BC, your coast will continue to deal with the rain. Now, let's take a look at BC yesterday. Vancouver, time sinking further enough south to make its way into Vancouver. So yes, rain in towards the afternoon. This is a look at some of the totals. As we take a look at Vancouver down here, this is where we could be getting around that 25 millimeter mark, but in the deeper reds, that's more closer to the 100 millimeter mark. No rainfall warnings in place just yet, but of course we will continue to monitor that story. And as we can see, the rain just really persistent this weekend along the coast. Looks like Sunday, not going to be a terrible day for Vancouver, but Sunday evening and into Monday morning, that's when you'll see some of the heaviest rain. Now, let's head over to a fun story in the studio, and she said it was such a great time. And I can say, Waterloo, you do have a great forecast right up until Monday. That's when the rain does head in. But temperatures throughout today, fairly comfortable. 14 in Toronto, that is bang on seasonal. So people in Southern Ontario, welcome to fall. We're no longer dealing with those above seasonal temperatures. As we take a look at some of the moisture throughout the weekend, it looks like Ontario staying dry for Saturday, but Sunday evening, that's when we see this low continue to track up a little bit further north in the east, and that's when Southern Ontario will get to the rain. This will move in towards the Atlantic provinces as well. Now, mild fall, mild winter. Kim McDonald has that story now. And another edition of Force of Nature is up in less than 10 minutes. I'm glad you're here because we're talking about the unsettled and the very pleasant as we take a look at BC and Alberta. You can see where the warmth is, and you can see where those unsettled conditions will lie this afternoon. And unfortunately, BC, it's not a very pleasant setup as we take a look at Thanksgiving long weekend. We do see a series of lows continue to develop in the Gulf of Alaska, and this is really going to be battering the BC coast with lots of rain throughout this weekend. Vancouver, you do get a break from the rain throughout Sunday, but Sunday afternoon, very heavy rain in towards Monday. That will probably be the heaviest rainfall. Now, lots of rain causes some very fast-moving waters. So here's a look at the BC Fire Demo Rescue. Now, how much rainfall are we talking about throughout this weekend? So this is a map through Saturday. And as we can see, the darker reds here, that indicates a possible 50 to 100 millimeters of rain. This will be the most. And then as we take a look a little bit further south down in towards Vancouver, looks like it could be around that 25 millimeter mark. So of course, we'll keep all of that updated here on the Weather Network. So as we take a look, more of this sort of a wide range of these lows developing. You can see a new one develops, heads down in towards the coast, and we can see that constant wet weather that BC will be experiencing into this weekend. Now, let me take you into North Bay there. Now, let's quickly take a look at some of our temperatures in towards Northern Ontario. Chilly single-digit highs. Our website. Okay, top 5 windiest cities, many of them ending up in Atlantic Canada. I'm going to show you some of the peak wind gusts from yesterday, but let's talk about this evening in St. John's. 11 degrees, should be a fairly clear sky. Okay, so now let's recap those very gusty winds. We call it the wreck house wind for a reason. Yes, very powerful through there. 79 kilometers an hour. That was the peak gust yesterday. Southern Ontario saw some very gusty weather, and now that has ended up in Atlantic Canada. Now, what causes a storm surge? We do have those in place right now along the northern shores of the St. Lawrence. Let's find out with science behind the weather. All right, and that situation still present along the northern shores of the St. Lawrence. Also, frost advisory. This is for tomorrow morning. Yes, some chilly temperatures. Now we're talking about king tides, some very powerful tides throughout Fundy and Nova Scotia. And then we are going to talk about more of our weather right across the country. That's when we return. Edition. All right, a great look there around the world in 60 seconds. Now a great look at today's forecast. Rachel Schoutsen here with you. Fair conditions throughout Ontario, but the potential of seeing some lake effect rain off the Georgian Bay with these very gusty conditions that continue out in towards the Atlantic provinces as well. Warmer throughout the prairies, yes, and then in BC, some pretty rainy conditions. Let me show you Pincher Creek yesterday in Alberta. Similar story again for today. Warm temperatures. Really, when you take a look at this map here, you can see who has the great forecast in towards Saturday and who maybe didn't luck out as well. We are seeing rain moving into the BC coast tonight, will linger through Saturday, slight clearing for Sunday, and then another round Sunday evening. So unfortunately, it is just some very unsettled weather. We can see sort of how this rain does play out, continuous along the coast, minor breaks, and then again, the heaviest rain Saturday and towards Monday. We can see those darker greens popping up through here. Now I want to talk about freeze protection. That's our latest feature in Science Behind the Weather.
A farmer's field.
All right, that seems like a lot of work. And we do have frost warnings in place right now throughout Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. Quickly, our temperatures throughout Ontario, warmer for Saturday. Okay, top 5 windiest cities, many of them ending up in Atlantic Canada. I'm going to show you some of the peak wind gusts from yesterday, but let's talk about this evening in St. John's. 11 degrees, should be a fairly clear sky. Okay, so now let's recap those very gusty winds. We call it the wreck house wind for a reason. Yes, very powerful through there. 79 kilometers an hour. That was the peak gust yesterday. Southern Ontario saw some very gusty weather, and now that has ended up in Atlantic Canada. Now, what causes a storm surge? We do have those in place right now along the northern shores of the St. Lawrence. Let's find out with Science Behind the Weather. All right, and that situation still present along the northern shores of the St. Lawrence. Also, frost advisory. This is for tomorrow morning. Yes, some chilly temperatures. Now we're talking about king tides, some very powerful tides throughout Fundy and Nova Scotia. And then we are going to talk about more of our weather right across the country. That's when we return.